3.23 has been starting to get detailed. We're finally getting some information on what's coming in the next patch, and it's looking much better than most people expected. We're going to spend today going over the details, the descriptions, all the things that are going to be in 3.23 that we know of so far. We're going to review Star Citizen Live last week, but while we're doing that, I've got all of the CitizenCon footage from last year that correlates to the things that we'll be talking about today. Tell me what is coming in 3.23.
These are the things that the various programming and engineering teams, the art teams, the design teams, these are the features that they're all working towards and expected to have delivered for Alpha 3.23. We all know, because we've been doing this for a while, that sometimes a thing slips, it gets to a go, no go, it doesn't quite make the go, so like that. So this is not an exhaustive list of everything that will come. There are also some surprises. There are also some things that we've designated surprises, things we want you to discover on your own when you log into PTU for that first time. So we're not going to cover everything that we're intending to put into 3.23, but we're going to cover a pretty exhaustive list.
You know, that's kind of the podcast with Astro Historian that came out today was talking about how this is kind of shifting towards more of a game format. And those are the kind of things that also feel like they're getting more into like their own game mindset of like, we're going to start to hide things more purposefully and kind of gamify our releases a little bit more. Wondering when we'll start seeing themed updates. So they release an update and it's like, oh, this one's based around mining. And it's got all this mining ship, mining locations, mining features. Oh, the next one's about piracy. Do it like that. Feels like that's kind of the direction we're headed in.
We're going to start with the stuff that we talked about yesterday in Inside Star Citizen. We came back on Inside Star Citizen yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. New EVA. So new EVA is coming along pretty well. When we first started capturing for ISC, we still had to be in squadron builds for a little bit because it was just getting integrated into the Precision universe.
Yeah.
By the time we went live, it had begun its integration into the Star Citizen universe. How's EVA doing?
Really good. Obviously, there's still work to do. Obviously, a big proponent of that, as you mentioned, it was in Squadron Stream. Obviously, now we're dealing with things like networking, and this is going to be true for a lot of the features that we talk about today, is that obviously there are unique challenges that come with putting things into the persistent universe in Star Citizen. So, yeah, it's looking really good. And obviously, the guys yesterday, if you missed ISC, they did a very, very good job of explaining the systems, but I'll kind of give a quick summary of that. Basically, how we felt previously about the old EVA system is that it wasn't really up to scratch. The player experience and just the feel of the movement wasn't really as responsive and as basically easy to use as we essentially want. So as the game's evolving, we're finding that we're going into these environments where we're making tighter turns, we're going through wreckages, we're trying to do things like that. And if you think about the old EVA system, because you're flying around so upright, you kind of have a silhouette of movement that's kind of like my forearm here. But if you think about it now, because we're going into what we've kind of called the Iron Man pose internally, where you're kind of leaning forward, your arms are down by your side, your silhouette is more like this. So you're facing directly forwards. And what that means is...
It's like the extreme opposite of those games where you're EVAing and they treat your whole body as just like that one point where your camera is. So you can just move into all these tight corners and do all these crazy moves. Exact opposite. They basically made us just like a giant pogo stick flying through space, and you would just barely nick the airlock as you were coming through and just all over the place. And then like last year, when when your whole body would rotate around your wrist every time you got into EVA, good Lord.
Tight spaces, it's a lot easier. When you're rotating, you're no longer rotating like this, you're kind of more rotating like this, so you can fit through those gaps easier, and you're not bumping into things quite as often. And then on top of that, if you're winding your way through, you're almost mirroring a bit like a snake-like motion, and obviously you can kind of fit through all those tight gaps and turns and things like that too.
It's a pretty cool system.
A lot of the comments that we saw on...
Hold on, we have some very good visuals for this because they just released this stuff. This is actually a pretty robust looking system.
So there's multiple aspects of the new VA system that makes it a lot more versatile. The first is that when you start looking around, it's your camera and your head that's moving. Your body, most of the time, doesn't. So if I'm heading in a certain direction and I want to see what's behind me, I can just look behind me, but I see my body I get that instant frame of reference as to where I am, where my body is, and it just grounds the experience.
So with the new system, we put the player into a more prone pose, kind of a superhero pose, makes them a much smaller silhouette when traversing around areas.
Can you show us how the EVA works? Show us how the EVA works.
So now EVA works like this. You move forward and you just fly.
How about when you turn, when you rotate?
And when you rotate, you're like,
They're good sound effects.
Of the character doesn't start to change. So if I want to look around in this tight-knit space, I'm not suddenly spinning around and knocking all the things off the shelves. I'm just looking around, which means that the metrics we can support for that feature suddenly become much more versatile. You can get on a vent rather than not being able to fit into a room. It's also a lot.
I'm really impressed here by the subtle movements when you're moving your head, just how much animation they've gotten into the body for like really subtle rotation. Looks good.
You know where you are and what you're doing.
Does not look like it's going to keep me from dying when I forget my helmet, though. It's a problem.
So no more face planting unless you really, really try.
in new EVA, you can just press forward and you fly. If you release the button, you keep flying while you still can rotate and look around.
Yeah, we've allowed it so you can turn on the spot without altering your silhouette, which is quite nice for interior traversal again. Feels a lot more natural, a lot more responsive to the player.
Yeah, we're going like this. Great.
So, this is something that's coming later, so we won't really touch on that. But that's kind of what they're talking about right now in this episode, just to,
In YouTube and on Spectrum and on Reddit, had to do with it seemed like the next logical step might be like little rockets on the boots, little rocket boots to help propel you, little jet packs, maybe even an animation to do the Christopher Reeve, Superman thing. Are any of these being considered?
In the future, we want to put more emphasis on basically picking equipment that allows you to EVA better. So that might be in the form of, say, EVA jetpacks, not jetpacks, but EVA backpacks and things like that might come with more EVA fuel, because that's something we want to do down the line. More oxygen and things like that for existing in spaces where there's no atmosphere for you to be able to breathe. And essentially, looking into that preparation phase that we've talked about before, where you're making considerations that, hey, I want to be like a EVA salvager. I'm going to equip myself with the things that are going to be able to get me there. But until we get other features in, like we showed yesterday, we showed the 0G push-pull. That's not coming in 323. No. And some of these systems we're holding back because we wouldn't really want to implement EVA fuel without having systems like 0G push-pull, because otherwise you might be sat in the middle of space, run out of fuel, you've got no options.
You also need to build places to refuel.
100%,
stuff
yes.
like that, yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. We tried to be very deliberate in our storytelling. We said, this is coming in Alpha 323, and then further down the line, there's the traversal, there's the 0G traversal where you're climbing on the hands. There's the fuel. We changed the work in progress graphic to say, this stuff is the 323. This stuff is not the 323.
Yeah.
We changed the music. Some folks, who maybe get their news from other rewatchers or whatever, missed that EVA is 323, but the 0G traversal, that crawling along the hands, and the fuel stuff is not 323. That is down the line.
Down the line, yeah.
Because of those reasons you just mentioned, we got to build these other systems.
Got to listen to the music, folks.
Accommodate them in a multiplayer environment.
Yes.
You can kind of gloss. You have other solutions in a single player game. The mission ends and stuff like this, but yeah. So. And then, of course, networking. Networking is going to be the challenge for all of these.
Yep, 100%.
There isn't just a make multiplayer button and transfer these features over. But
at the end of the day, you always sit in the gum known as networking.
I want to shout out the gameplay folks for Inside Star Citizen. They do amazing stuff. There's the alpha game that you play, and then there's the PTU. That's got a certain level of bugginess. There's no reason to lie about it. There's the PTU that has a certain level of bugginess. Then there's Evocati that has so much bugginess we NDA it. And then there's where these guys work. So the effort that they put into getting those EVA shots when they were still working on networking and stuff was a truly Herculean effort. And I want to shout out Will, Dave, and Alex for their work on that right there. We also, let's move on to the personal interaction experience or player interaction system. I'm not going to use the acronym.
Are you sure?
And the default item actions.
Okay. Yeah.
Where did this come from? Because obviously we were working towards inner thought and all this other stuff. I know we talked a little bit about it at CitizenCon, but where in the development?
Oh my God! If they could like clearly explain how this system is supposed to work lore-wise, that'd be great. Now
that changed. Did we realize we needed this other approach?
Yeah, so obviously we had an interaction system that has evolved a couple of times, right? And it evolves through necessity and where the game's at and where we feel like it needs to go. So we used to just have the super plain interaction system. You remember the old use thing that was in the middle of the screen? And it used to just be, you know, looking back on that now, it was quite inappropriate because you would hit use and hope that it was the correct action that, you know, it did. Is it going to pick it up? Is it going to open it? Is it going to close it? What's going to happen? So that obviously wasn't very clear. And as the game evolved and the items and the way you interact with the items.
like if you look at a grenade on the ground and it just, the only prompt that pops up is use. If it were real life, I would not take that chance. Like, what does use mean?
It's got more kind of in depth, and you know, you could do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different things with the same item. The necessity came to basically have a selection there. So that's basically where we ended up with the system that is currently in Star Citizen at the moment, where we've got the list. Now, obviously, playing with that for such a long time, we eventually got to a point where we were saying, you know, we could definitely do better here, and it's something that we've wanted to do for quite a while. So that's where the player interaction experience comes in, where we are now condensing this down into one single use action. But unlike the old use action, you get a verb that essentially tells you what it is you're going to do. And that also ties into default item actions. So I could look at all of these items on your desk, right? All of them might be very different from each other. Your laptop might be like the old school use action, which would tell me that I'm probably going to hop down and start typing on the laptop. That folder there might be more like a pickup action or an inspect action if it's something that's like a data pad, if there's an iPad on the table or something like that. And that allows us to basically look at all of these different item types that we've got in data and say, this is what we think the default item action for this thing should be. But again, in ISC, something really cool that we showed off is the ability to customize that as well. So we're not getting rid of all of the big list of actions that we previously had that were quite difficult to navigate through, especially in like situations like combat. Combat is obviously something that we've seen a lot of in Squadron.
Hold on, I'm in the middle of the fight. Let me go through this long list of things here while I'm getting shot.
Yeah, you can envision how that generally goes. And again, through the game evolving comes the necessity to change it, right? So I just want to look at a weapon on the floor and hit go. I just want to pick it up and use it, right? But as I was saying, yeah, we're not getting rid of all of the other actions that you can do with the items. It's just that they are tucked away behind a wheel. For the people who want to customize this experience or use the other interactions on specific items, it's all there, and it's in a slightly cleaner format with the wheel, so you're not accidentally clicking something on a condensed list that we used to have.
Okay, but is the wheel like, is it part of our visor now? And does there's no way it goes away when you take helmets off. So are we just kind of magical wheel appears in my eyesight? Like they always tried to explain these things with tech and stuff. I would be very surprised if they don't have an explanation for it. I thought it was inner thought, but they just kind of were hinting at just now that inner thought is something of the past. So, right? Like, back here somewhere?
Because obviously we were working towards inner thought.
How the freaking heck did I just hit that so perfectly? Oh my God.
And all this other stuff. I know we talked a little bit about it at CitizenCon, but where in the development of Squadron 42 did that change? Did we realize we needed this other approach?
See, yes. He's saying it's another approach. Is it inner thought? Because everybody is saying it's inner thought in chat, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe he's just kind of misspoken there. If it's inner thought, then sure. Okay, I get it. But it's very, very technological inner thought. Cool.
I just want to look at a weapon on the floor and hit go. I just want to pick it up and use it, right? But as I was saying, yeah, we're not getting rid of all of the other actions that you can do with the items. It's just that they are tucked items. a condensed list that we used to have.
Previously known as
Some
Interthought.
of the comments we saw again on YouTube and Spectrum and whatnot was that as you looked around, F on everything. Is that going to happen every single time a player looks around at everything? Is that a toggleable thing?
I'm not asking for a lore reason. I'm saying it sounded like he was saying inner thought was changed. And so I was wondering, if there is no inner thought, then what is the lore reason for this new system? But as Chad is saying, perhaps it's just that the name was changed or something like that. I don't really care anymore. Let's move on.
So we've spent a lot of time tuning that, so it's picking out the important items, the large items. Basically, we've got a system that essentially finds out where your focus is. So again, we have played with this a lot. If the F moving around on all these different items got annoying, it would annoy us too, because we played the game so much as well. So we're at a point now where we feel like the F selection is very, very clear and easy to use. And the selection itself isn't, we know, like if I was here right now and I had moved my focus to your laptop, but I was too far away to actually use the laptop, it would prioritize the closest thing that is still in the focus. It's actually a very smart system. So yeah, we don't get annoyed by it at all. And for the people who actually like to use it, the interaction system's still there. So you can still mouse over things and highlight them and interact with them. If you really need to do fine control, oh, I'm sifting through this guy's stuff that's on his armor, or I've got loads of clutter on my desk in my hab, I can still very fine, have a fine selection of what I want to interact with too.
And of course, like everything here, this will continue to iterate after 3.23.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think we're telling any tales out of school. 3.23 is not going to be the final version of any of these features. That this game continues to iterate and continues to evolve. You got a balance for the Squadron 42 universe. Putting it into Persistent Universe, we might discover a PU location where it does get a little crazy, and adjustments have to be made. That's part of development.
A pile of bodies. I'm really interested in knowing how many different types of objects they have for this little interaction system. Because they talk about how they've got different default actions for different items. Seems like there's they have a lot of ability to do things based on what an item type is, depending on where you are. And I wonder how many different types of things have different logics behind them when you use them. Nerdy details.
So that's what we covered yesterday. So now let's go into formally announcing some other things that we're working towards. Distribution centers. Mm-hmm. Distribution centers, which we've shown off. I think we first introduced the idea of them at CitizenCon 2 years ago. We revisited them at the CitizenCon last year. I think we did a Journey to 4.0 special somewhere in the middle. They blurred together.
Did he just confirm they were basically the UGFs of before?
At CitizenCon 2 years ago. We revisited them at the CitizenCon last year. I think we did a Journey to 4.0 special somewhere in the middle. They blurred together. People, I'm sorry. I've done a lot of these shows.
So UGFs are distribution centers.
Distribution centers
Good to know.
Now fully on track.
Or I wonder, because UGFs were split into 3 tiers, right? We still have not heard about those 3 separate tiers individually. Maybe distribution centers are just large UGFs. Like that's what they turned into. And we still have the medium and small versions of UGFs that'll be called or used as something else. Maybe they'll just kind of mix the small UGFs into the outpost with these new cargo freight elevators. Oh.
Alpha 3.23.
Yep.
What can you tell me about what players can expect?
Okay, so just as a bit of background, the distribution centers are these massive facilities. They truly are really big. That are down on the surface of planets and moons and things like that. And they kind of are what they sound like, right? It's a center of distribution. Like there are lots of landing pads. It should be a big hub of activity basically. And there are a lot of different areas of the distribution center that are different from each other. So you've got the exterior, typically where people will be landing their ship, unloading cargo, things like that. You've got the offices up top, which is generally more of a front for whatever business or corporation has ownership of this
front,
place.
huh?
And then you've kind of got more of the inner workings, which are kind of where you would typically expect to see cargo being ferried. If there's machinery that are producing stuff down there, if they're making something, then that would be where that's all tucked down. So what we're trying to provide for 3.23 is some variety between the different locations, so slightly different layouts between the different distribution centers, so they all feel a little bit different from each other. Have different factions at each of these places as well, which should give a very different feeling of what you're going to be doing there. So just as an example, and we talked about this recently, is you might have a law-abiding faction there. And typically, you would be doing what you would expect to at a law-abiding place, where you would be trading, talking to people, things like that, all above board. If you're a pirate, you can obviously come and attack and cause trouble, but they might have security systems made to deal with you. You might also have a hostile faction that's take over one of these things that a corporation maybe previously had, and they came in and took over, and that would be a very combat-focused area for you to go and play in. And then you might have something that's more of a mix. So you go in, the front is very professional and business-like, but underneath, if you go a little bit deeper, you might find that they're up to no good.
Space wallet.
Hey,
Yeah.
I like that.
So,
okay, but like, I want to hear more details about non-combat related stuff. Like the most friendly player in the verse, Void Dude in chat says, "How's it going, dude? Good to see you." The carrot at the end of the distribution center stick needs to be big. It can't just be bigger UGFs. We've got to have more diverse stuff to do. Because to be honest, I like what we saw in terms of the raids they showed us, but as distribution centers go, I think these need to have, in order for these to be successful when they come out, they've got to have more than just combat missions, and they need to have missions outside of the facility. Something in the local area that you can go to from the distribution center to run a mission. I think that was like a pretty key part of what makes these different from the other locations. They kind of like the pyro settlements they've talked about. Yeah, I think that'd be important besides just combat.
Ultimately, for the content we want to provide, the distribution centers have a lot of possibility, and there's no way that we're going to provide all of the content that we want to in one drop. But we definitely want you interacting there, doing cargo missions, and potentially some, basic like combat missions and things like that to interact with all of the different areas of the distribution centers we're going to provide. But the future's very exciting for them.
And these are
big and diverse.
And these are humongous. These are the biggest thing we've...
For what it's worth, I don't think those localized missions have any chance of coming in 323. But knowing that it's the direction they're going would be good.
Done short of a landing zone.
Yeah.
They are massive. They are microcosms of the entire Star Citizen FPS experience. When I say FPS, I mean things not in a spaceship. There are missions. You'll get missions that will take you to these places. You'll go to these places to take to get missions that take you out. Some missions we'll be talking about these on ISC in just like 2 weeks, so I don't want to spoil everything. But some of the missions are self-contained within the distribution center. They're that big that you can do the entire
Why is there a
loop within
fucking cow?
the distribution center.
Yep.
How did it even get there?
They really are an exciting new addition, and in 323 is not the end of them. Like I said, 323 is not the end of anything. They will continue to evolve beyond that. It's one of those things. I don't think we're ready to share that just yet, but there are some exciting plans for distribution centers. Beyond 323.
Daisy? Okay.
That, boy, when they let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you really loud. All right. From there, let's move on to some ship stuff. What did it say? Wow, the Star Citizen Live set has come such a long way, says Old Boy. Yeah, well, we try. We try. So we've been talking about master modes again. Master modes almost, actually, we've been talking about master modes for just as long as we've been talking about
the power's
distribution
not back
centers.
on yet.
They first debuted 2 CitizenCons ago. In 323, they are slated to go in.
Yep.
They're slated to go in, so yeah, so yay for everybody. Rich, the vehicle experience team, Rich Tyler's team, April and all of them, they're fast working on converting all of Star Citizen's existing spaceships to the master modes, defining the different archetypes, and again, we'll be talking about those in detail in ISC in 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This is not. It's taken us a while to get to master modes.
Yep.
And not everyone is. I think it's safe to say not everybody is completely on board with the idea. I can read Spectrum, I can read Reddit and whatnot. There seem to be just as many people who are for the idea as against.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
I mean, it's a big change, right? And people are always, initially going to be resistant to it. And I think that's very, very natural because you've been playing a game for such a long time and it's such a big change that you're going to have to relearn a lot of the things that you've already learned before. But ultimately, again, this was another thing that has come around from us playing the game, especially in like combat-focused scenarios in Squadron, and going through and going, you know, like, hey, we feel like change needs to be made. So just a very, very, very high level of what master modes are. As essentially you have navigation and 2 SCM modes that you switch between, and they have very defined purposes with how you fly your ship. And what this has allowed us to do is in SCM, which is essentially your combat mode, is we've made it so the combat is able to be a little bit tighter because we've got a bit more control over the ship speeds there. That combat is a lot more personal, a lot tighter, and we felt that it felt for a much more visceral and a lot more personal and experience with whoever you're fighting. And obviously that's translated to player versus player combat as well, which again, we've been testing internally quite a lot. And it's avoiding situations where you're able to essentially exploit the flight system to kind of constantly play chase and not really have a proper, you know, one-on-one combat with someone, and you're constantly running away and not running away. So we felt that it was a positive change as we've been playing the game. So yeah,
I think from my limited experience.
Okay. I'm not a combat player, so this is like well out of my wheelhouse, but as a feature change, it's a very big deal, so I do want to cover it. But it's super subjective, I think. Like, this master modes is objectively subjective, you know? It's really a case of what do you want more out of the game, and what are you looking more for? A lot of, like, there's always been problems with the flight model in this game, especially when it comes to combat. That's really the most important part for people because that's all we've been able to do for most of the time. And they really want to build a game that like is more fun than anything. Well, that's not true. More immersive than anything. And part of what they're trying to do with that is make it cinematic almost, which is, you know, kind of, that's a Chris thing. He likes cinematic things, I guess. And so they want to slow down the speeds. Now, all the way back in the day, oh my god, this was like, I really did think things were kind of going in a different direction development-wise at this time, at least when it came to this flight stuff. But if you go back far enough in our updates, you will find, gosh, that must have been like 3.12-ish. Countermeasures, torpedo behaviors, turret changes. Yeah, they were doing some combat changes around this time. And this was really their attempt at making what they are forcing now happen through, you know, normal behavior. And I'm trying to find the exact addition. Turret and gunner, thruster efficiency curves. Okay, so yeah, this kind of stuff. Here we go. This was the aerodynamics. This was kind of the precursor to the control surfaces we're getting now. And there was this. Right, is this it? No. Here we go. High-speed combat. Ship systems will suffer the strains of traveling at high speeds, with maximum velocity resulting in the restriction of some player options in the cockpit, creating a vulnerability that will push players into engaging at low speeds. This was their, like, 60% attempt at getting players to start flying more slowly during combat. Like, I thought they were going to double down on this and go more and more into this. But they just released this, and they were like, okay, you'll have limited missiles, and, like, you won't shoot as well when you're flying fast. And everybody basically ignored it. That was 3.10. That was a long time ago, in 2020. By 2021, I think it was, if you go back to our Master Modes deep dive from January, maybe, I think, we go over the first video where they mention why they're doing Master Modes, and I think it's in, I'm not going to be able to remember, Inside Star Citizen, probably 2021, I think. So for like a year, they sat on this system and they were like, is this working? Are people slowing down? Is combat getting better? And they decided it's not. We can't incentivize people into it, so they started to develop a system that would force people into it, and that's where Master Modes came from. And whether you think it's right or wrong, the whole goal of it is to slow down combat, as they tried to do all the way back here in 2020, and it didn't work. Part of this is also taking us back to the old combat flight model, which I thought is what PvP players wanted, but now people aren't as happy about it. But the whole separation of speeds that we had back pre 3.0, 2.6 time, but it does feel like something that they've been at least trying to do in different ways. I do think that the solution came with Squadron 42 first. As we can see, everything that they developed for Squadron 42 first is looking a lot better now. So that's kind of an introduction to Master Modes. He's explaining it better than I ever will here. So let's listen back in on what he's saying.
With it, it gets more exciting the more players that get involved. It's certainly fun 1v1, but when the furball starts, when, we're testing some things that where more and more players are jumping in and stuff like this, and when I'm seeing the battles with like 15 people involved, 25 people involved, it keeps them all tight and compact.
Yep.
And literally the screen can be filled with ships this way, and it's much more visceral experience.
It's a game changer. We've got such beautiful ships. We've got amazing VFX that when you're shooting at someone, you typically in the past haven't really been able to see because you're hundreds of meters, if not kilometers, away from people. It seems a real shame to not be able to see some of that stuff. You're basically interacting with the.
It's also kind of like, bro, we have capital ships. We haven't even considered capital ships in this game yet. Trying to make it so that we can fight around capital ships, it has to be slower. I don't know how else they would do it. Let me show you a little bit of what these combat things they're talking about look like.
Plays together with the other things like the other exhaustion effects that we have. So overall, the ship should now feel a little bit more reactive than before. The same thing. Sorry. At the same time, we reduce the extensions that that the look-ahead code is doing. So we basically narrowed it down a little bit so it mixes better with GeForce reaction, so that even when you don't have a head tracker or something like that, it will still feel pretty good. But this is just a minor change. We also improved the flight controls themselves. So take a look at the speed gauge, for example. It's a little bit... All
right, I think the conversation is going to shift towards the combat precision stuff and kind of like what that looks like now. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that here. Yeah, here we go.
Screen, just shoot. Enable precision targeting mode. There we go.
Okay, it is a choice. That's something we were talking about on the podcast. Whether or not precision targeting was forced or a choice, it being a choice is very good. Glad they just confirmed that there.
Targeting mode. There we go. What this does, it does three things. You get this full zoom on the target.
The main reason I wanted to show you guys this video is because you can see like the sparks coming off the ship. There's a lot more visual effects surrounding these combat sort of, what would you call that? Reaction. Like these details that show what's going on from a distance. You can see it here too. You see. Kind of see these big splashes of sparks coming off the ships when they get shot here. The way he's talking about how he wants ships to be grouped up so that they're all very close together, so that you're kind of always seeing a lot of action in your view and getting a really visceral view of the combat. I feel like that's part of what they're doing here also with these effects. They're just overall dipping into a more cinematic feel for the game now. Maybe that's coming from Squadron, but I do think that's something that they've always wanted to focus on in Star Citizen 2. Yeah, shot feedback.
Beautiful ships. We've got amazing VFX that, when you're shooting at someone, you typically in the past haven't really been able to see because you're, hundreds of meters, if not kilometers away from people. It seems a real shame to not be able to see some of that stuff. You're basically just interacting with the UI. So this bringing you closer together is just a much better feeling experience in our opinion.
So Master Modes on track 323.
At the moment, yeah.
Mark it off.
And we want a lot of feedback, so... and we will get it, I'm sure, but yeah.
Along with Master Modes, some other ship-related stuff, precision targeting. precision targeting, and a big change to gimbals and weapon gimbals. What can you tell us about this?
So precision targeting at its very core is very similar to what you would do in a first-person shooter. You take time to aim, and it kind of almost helps you be more accurate. So what you can expect in the ships is a immediate zoom. So I know we've got a system where you can scroll in and zoom, and it's maybe a little bit awkward to try and use. This is a more toggle in, toggle out of zoom. So again, you're going to be closer anyway through master modes coming in. This is more a case of you're closer already, and now you're zooming in on your target. You can see much more of the ship. So if you're in a combat scenario where you're flying around and having to maneuver a lot and you're dealing with multiple targets, you might not necessarily want to use it too much. But if I'm in a situation where you're flying a Cutlass and I'm trying to take one of your engines off, I can toggle into precision targeting mode and go straight for your engines if I wanted to, just take out your engines, get on board and deal with you that way. So it's, again, leans more into that closer feeling experience, also helps you with aiming at a target rather than trying to pixel hunt a little bit with your screen. And obviously makes it more accessible than having to scroll in and out with the mouse wheel. It's just one click to toggle in and out. And then with the gimbal change, the big change there is all ships are basically now going to have gimbals.
Hold on, just look right at that camera. Don't drop it. Look right at that camera right there. And say that again.
All ships are going to have gimbals, or all weapons are going to have gimbals. Weapon slots of ships are going to have gimbals. So that's not entirely true. I'm going to contradict myself already.
Yeah, there are a few
couple
exceptions.
of exceptions. You know, you look at the Idris, it's got a massive railgun on it. It's not going to be rotating around everywhere. It's
the nose gun on the Vanguard.
Yeah. So there are a few that are.
That would be so funny if the Idris railgun is just like tracking you as you're flying around.
Going to be stuck as they are, but the what we kind of had thought about for a while that we weren't too keen on is the swap down and swap out for the different weapons. And exchanging the gimbal out for that, basically, because new players come in and it's not immediately understandable what's going on there, and we didn't really feel like it was adding as much value. Yeah. And just to touch on the turrets as well, turrets are now going to have gimbaled weapons too, which is really, really good, because obviously previously you were limited to the rotation speed of the turret. It gives you a little bit more look ahead and a little bit more of a unified, pleasant experience.
I was thinking, like, aren't turrets gimbaled? But yeah, I guess inside the turret also.
That you can expect from the ships that you can then expect from the turrets as well.
So I think we glossed over the gimbal change. And again, we have an entire ISC dedicated to this. So we're covering a lot of topics that you're then going to see deep dives of for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks and whatnot. But with the gimbals, the size restrictions.
We're deep diving right now. Thank you very much, Jared. This is going to be very... I wouldn't be surprised if ships see their weapon sizes change, which I'm sure will make plenty of people very happy. At the end of the day, all of this is going to get balanced so that it makes sense based on what the ship is. So, like, there might be changes to ships that are disappointing right now, but as armor comes in, as the Maelstrom damage system comes in, as components start to be used more, it's going to end up being balanced out. Weapon changes. Oh, this is going to be an exciting year. We're going to have a podcast on this. I'm working on setting up a podcast for this with unannounced guests. We'll talk about that later.
But going away with them. So
as in you're no longer trading.
Have to do
down.
one size,
Exactly
one down.
Yeah.
So some ships will get bigger weapons for this. And of course there are the exceptions. Basically, I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list of the exceptions, but if you look at a ship and there's clearly a very impossibly fixed weapon on it, think Inferno, think Vanguard with the nose, think Idris with the railgun. Those will not be gimbaled. So they're not going through and remaking the ships to do that. So there are a very small amount of exceptions.
You stay off Reddit after this.
Yeah, it will be an exception rather than a common thing.
All right, and again, we will cover all that with Yogi and Rich Towler and their teams in just a few weeks. So stay tuned for more details and examples and all that good stuff. Let's go back to FPS stuff a little bit.
Okay.
Dynamic crosshair, scopes, reloading, FPS weapon stuff. Go. What you got?
Oh man, how long we got?
Going back to your old stomping grounds here.
Yeah, I mean, so please stop me if I go too technical or go too deep on this, because obviously this is kind of my jam. So God, where do we start? So let's start with reloading. So the changes or improvements to reloading, as we've been calling it, have again come through the necessity of change through playing combat in Squadron a lot, very focused combat areas where we're able to really hammer out some of the basic combat mechanics. Where
is the reloading?
We were in situations that were getting frustrating, and we were essentially playing the game, as most people probably know, engaging the FPS combat. If you reload, we save your ammo pool to your magazine, and that goes back on your suit. And you might then end up in a situation where if you want to put more magazines on your suit is now completely full, and you can't put more on unless you swap them out. And it's a very sticky, tedious process. Yeah, so essentially we're trying to remove steps there, rather than get rid of the realism that you have with basically having magazines that contain the ammunition. We want to keep that, and down the line we may still want to lean into doing the magazine stripping through a proper animated system. What we really wanted to lean in to at the moment is just an ability to be able to condense the amount of ammunition down that you've got. So that's what we call ammo repooling, and that is an interaction either on the weapon or in your inventory that lets you essentially go, this weapon, I would like to condense all of the magazines for that. Your character will play an animation while it's happening. It's quite a basic one. And then it will take a varying amount of time depending on how much ammunition you're shifting. So if I'm doing LMG mags, that will take longer than, say, if I'm doing pistol magazines that might have...
Okay, so what I was showing you on the screen here, this is where you can do ammo repooling in your inventory. This is the new looting screen. And what they're showing here is that you can do the ammo repooling, but it also sounds like he is telling us that we will be doing a physical animation for ammo repooling, which is actually really cool.
10 bullets in or so.
So, and of course, again, we don't want to cover every aspect. We want to save some stuff for Torsten's team when he's on in a few weeks. This is a weird show. This is not a show that we've done before. We're essentially spoiling the entire season of Inside Star Citizen this quarter. If you haven't figured that out.
And we love it. That's great.
This is basically everything that you can expect to see on Thursdays for the next 9-10 weeks as we go. Dynamic Crosshair.
Okay, Dynamic Crosshair. So
now, why would he say 9-10 weeks? We're all going to sit here and go, all right, what's 10 weeks from now? 1, 2, I'm literally doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Huh. Mid-April. Interesting.
Again, this came through necessity from playing combat so much. It was essentially a situation where you don't always have time to aim. Sometimes you want to just shoot your gun in a desperate situation, and it's really nice to have an indicator there of where it is you're going to shoot. So we came up with the Dynamic Crosshair. It essentially gives you an idea of what sort of spread you can expect from your weapon, and we essentially simulate spread through a spread cone on our guns, just because we don't want the gun shaking all over the place to kind of generate it. So we do add some spread on there, and essentially the more you fire, obviously it changes, the more unstable it is. The Dynamic Crosshair basically tells you where you're going to be shooting. Now, what we've done, and this kind of leans into some down the line armor gameplay that we're going to be leaning into, where we want to make the armor sets and things feel different and give them a unique purpose, is this Dynamic Crosshair is meant as a combat feature that you get on combat helmets. So if I'm, say an engineer or something like that, I don't necessarily need a Dynamic Crosshair for my gun because I'm not really going out and doing combat. You might get other benefits from wearing engineering gear or medical gear or whatever, but this is something that we're obviously leaning into long term, and this is one of the first features that we're bringing out for combat suits. And
we'll save scopes and recoil and stuff for Torsten and their teams like this. I do want to clear something up. I can see the chat right now, and even if I couldn't see the chat, I'd know what was happening. He said 8 to 9 weeks, and somebody's doing math from February 2nd. Is it February 2nd? Yeah. February 2nd to try to figure out when Alpha 323 is. Don't do that to yourself.
Don't tell us numbers.
I'm just pulling numbers out of my...
Don't pull numbers out of any...
how many episodes that I have planned ahead and stuff like that. That's not any indication of when the patch is going to come.
It's an indication. Hold them to it. Somebody clip it.
Don't do that.
Doing it.
Just enjoy life. Be in the moment. Enjoy all of this that we're talking about that we're shooting for Alpha 323.
And Squadron 42 is coming out in March, and 4.0 is out in May. I hate my life.
Don't spoil the experience for yourself by putting dates on things and trying to reverse information that doesn't exist.
You can't give us numbers and then tell us not to maths.
It's possible I've been doing this too long, JJ.
Maybe. And it's only the start of the year.
All right. You mentioned the combat helmets, and so sorry. Let's talk about the visor and lens stuff. In ISC yesterday, players saw a little bit of the 3D Minimap and the corner and some visor stuff. 323.
Don't throw tomatoes at me.
Yeah. I think so basically visor and hood is going to be a big restyle. So I think the big task at the moment is restyling it for the persistent universe. Just a few features essentially. We have like the existing hint system that we've got in game. That's all being tidied away into the new notification system that we've got with high and low priority notifications, where we've got some really nice visuals for those. We've obviously got the newly reworked, I'm going to call it like the combat stack. That's what I quite like calling it.
Yeah.
No one else calls it that, but basically it shows you where all your ammo is, gives you all your feedback for your weapons, changing items, things like that. It shows you what's in your hands.
Let's make it a thing. Let's all agree to call it the combat stack for JJ.
Yeah, combat stat works. This over here in the bottom right, I'm guessing you're talking about?
Then on the left-hand side, we've obviously got all the widgets for things like, your health, the environment, all that sort of stuff. We've got the compass that's going in too, which is, we've got the compass. It's in the video. You can already see it.
Wait, an actual compass?
Well,
Like I can tell what direction I'm going?
yes.
Like no more. Which direction am I going? I can go that's north.
Yeah. Well, not north. And south.
When we have friends next to us, we can tell them what direction to look. To your right. Look to your right. That all the way right. Ah, gosh. Yeah, compass is great. Hold on, we can go actually back to the real screen where they were showing us these things and play these as the visuals.
Space, but you got a bearing. Maybe
I'll take it.
North on a planet.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you happy? Yeah. Okay, good. And then obviously one of the biggest ones is the Minimap, and the Minimap is amazing. It really is, and it links into what we're doing, which we can talk about in a little bit, with the Starmap on the Mobiglast 2, which is basically the area map. I'll make very clear now.
He said
we're
Starmap.
not doing all
Somebody
locations.
stop the video.
I was just about to hit that.
Stop the video. He said Starmap. Jesus. Oh my God, it's happening.
With the Minimap, because obviously there is a lot of space and areas to mark up.
Yes, I was going to say, let's talk about that. The Minimap does not just exist in a vacuum.
Yep.
Every single location in the persistent universe has to be marked up in order to feed that information into the Minimap. I'll go ahead and say, because I talked to John Crew about this just yesterday, the ship team is working diligently to get as many of the ships as possible marked up for 323.
Same with landing
you can
zones.
at least explore your ships with the mini maps and stuff, and then maybe a couple.
That's crazy that every location. I was really, because they talked about, I could have sworn, hold on, let's go back to Citizen Con. We're going back in the history books. So somewhere in here, right? They show the maps? Yep. I could have sworn, and this is Chris talk.
Visuals, the mini map.
Let's see what they say here.
We're
gray
going
boxes.
back.
But that would be an example, is you don't know the layout of that place, but you would have to go and hook into their system, download the map, and then now you would have it in your mini map. So what we have is we have some footage here, which is showing how the visuals, the mini map, in terms of sort of an isometric render
in
the engine, in the UI, that will essentially become your mini map. But you'll have a more sort of reduced version with you in the middle as you're moving around. But if we run it, you'll see kind of what the tech is. So first, this is in the editor. But it's essentially what it does is it's taking our existing layouts, levels, ships, so we don't have to build this custom, but it's a way of applying.
I'm sorry, Chris. What was that?
Is it's taking our existing layouts, levels, ships, so we don't have to build this custom.
Persistent universe has to be marked up in order to feed that information into the map. I'll go ahead and say, because I talked to John Crew about this just yesterday, the ship team is working diligently to get as many of the ships as possible marked up
Yep.
for 323.
Same with
so that
landing
you can at
zones.
least explore your ships with the mini maps and stuff, and then maybe a couple locations here and there.
Yep.
And then that
See, I don't know how to feel about that.
will just continue. Patch after patch after patch will just continue to mark up more and more locations.
It'll
Till
It's not being built, it's just marking it up. It's just I guess that's good. It's a matter of not knowing the terms. It really is a case of not hearing things like this.
Layouts, levels, ships. So we don't have to build this custom, but it's a way of applying certain shaders and marking up certain objects to be displayed, like the floor gets displayed, but the walls don't. So we can just
Because he's talking about marking up.
objects
It's just too confusing to know for a layperson to hear this and try and figure out what the heck it even means.
be displayed like the floor gets displayed, but the walls don't. So we can just take the existing geometry you already have streamed in that you're walking around already, and then use it to be rendered for our minimap. So this is essentially in the engine using the Idris ship itself and the various parts of its interior to create the minimap without any special. This doesn't have any specific custom like UI art for it, other than some of the like level things that say, ground level or whatever.
It's one of the advantages of
You just can't listen to it and make any sort of connection from it, because the words, like, yeah, it's it doesn't take any custom work, but it still does take marking up, which is something they have to do for each location. So it's not custom work, but it is still work that needs to be done on each place. Which means it won't be as fast a process as them just kind of throwing these locations in and getting them into the minimap. We'll have to see how long it takes for them to... I'm hoping that it's very easy to, once they catch up, as soon as they add a location, it's already marked up and ready to go, and that's built into their process. I'm guessing that's something they were already doing. But we'll have to see how long it takes after 323 for everything to be in the map system.
eventually all of the PU reaches parity.
Yep, so it's going to be really easy to find your way around everywhere once it's done. So you can basically just get a view of where you are, where you want to go, set a route, all of that good stuff.
Okay, but that's also another thing. I don't like the idea of there being maps for everywhere already, just by default. That was kind of something that I thought was special for this game. Not the sense that there were no maps, but maybe that you had to download the map or get it somehow. At least for places that weren't like cities. Wasn't that the whole point of there being signs around the cities to navigate by?
Should we lay it on them? I mean, we're right there. We're right there with the mini map.
I don't even know where you're going to go with this.
You don't know where we're going to go for the
Oh,
mini
yeah,
map?
no, okay, now you've said that.
Should we lay it up?
Sure.
Say it.
Starmap.
Starmap.
New Starmap. Yeah, so big quality of life improvement from where we're at right now. And again,
It's giving life.
we're changing it because
Quality.
it's the current star map is difficult to use. It's not clear, you don't get enough feedback. Like some things are broken,
He said some things are broken.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, we've spent a lot of time on styling it, making it very clear, making it very easy to use, done a lot of testing ourselves of just playing around with it. We've added some new features to it too. So essentially
features.
a estimated travel time if you set a route somewhere, search functionality, which is all fairly basic to start with. We'll obviously come back more on that later, but down the line. But essentially, if I want to go to Hurston, I type in Hurston, it takes me to Hurston on the map. And I click set route, and then I go. Like I
don't understand. Why can it be so easy? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we're obviously very, very excited about it.
I have so many traumas, though, JJ. What am I going to do with all my traumas?
You have to find new ones. That's what you have to do. Create more.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty more to be replaced, but this will be the biggest one taken care of. The books.
And then from the star map, let's just go way to the other end of technical stuff with a little thing.
I'm still really like the way they describe the map. I know they're going to do a deep dive in the ISC, so we'll wait until we hear more about that. I really want to hear more about this idea of you can just have maps and just go places. That felt like a very important part of exploration and data running, and I hope that I'm looking forward to hearing more about that here. Here's some of like the search and minimap or Starmap functionality they were doing here, just for those who haven't seen it yet.
Improve the way this list is presented to you to make it even easier to find what you're looking for. And yes, this will include search functionality. But for now, Bone, let's use this to go to Aerial. I absolutely love zooming around on this map. Bone, want to find Area 18 for me? So, Area 18 is currently on the dark side of the planet, it seems. Of course, it's not just planets and moons. Bone, how about we take a look at Security Post Korea?
Look at this. You could just click on a name on a list and go to a place.
Quite a long way down, isn't it? This is where the upcoming search will really come in useful.
I mean, forget search. All right, search is great. Search is like that sweet, nice, ice cold Coke you get after you're all done working out in the yard, digging a hole to bury all those bodies in, right? Yeah, that's great. Search is cool. But can we talk about the joint you get before that? The list. You can just scroll down and click on. Oh, man. Like, we're celebrations over the most simple of things. Wait, what?
Bone, want to zoom in a little and show off our holographic model of this station?
Holograms! Ah! No, we've had those. We know that they actually like holograms quite a lot in this game. But there are a few very nice features. One of the best is here they're going to show, I think.
Eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that the player marker clamps to the edge of the map, keeping it visible to you no matter how far away you go. To get back to our position, we could double-click that marker, or we could click the first of the navigation buttons to zoom straight there. Now, I'm sure many of you have been wondering if we can go back to our carrot map from the star map, just like how we got here from the carrot map just a few minutes ago. So, let's see what happens when we focus on our player marker. Go ahead, Bone.
Like, not even a glitchy half planet that you're standing on. The actual inside of the spaceship you're in. Oh, man. It couldn't.
All right. So yeah, here's our Carrick again. Being able to simply zoom between these map contexts lets you draw meaning.
That's one of the better parts too, is like they've talked about this for a long time. I mean, as long as I think I can remember covering Star Citizen for sure. Since 2018, they've been talking about, oh, we want to get the map to be able to zoom in from where you are all the way out to the star system, and then eventually beyond to like the galaxy map where all the different stars are. And they actually are getting it.
So we can see the entire Stanton solar system. It's just so cool to watch the verse open up before our eyes. With all these new possibilities for moving around the star map, you should never find yourself lost again. The controls are so...
The only thing, I just want a little bit more color. Like, this little Galactopedia notification is the most interesting thing on the screen, you know? And it's a nice touch. I just wish there were a little bit more dynamic colors and markers.
Smoother and easier to...
A little bit more about this map. So you can see they have the local map here, which is showing, like, real-time doors, elevators, objects that move around in the levels that you're in. You can see that they have objective markers. They have plenty of labels to give you ideas of where you are on location, so you're never going to get lost in a landing zone again. And then probably the best part of this entire presentation and the whole map.
And we can customize we can customize the details of that marker. Now, what you'll notice as well is as we set markers, there's metadata that is encoded into each of these markers on top of the customized name that we can specify. So we can mark as many.
So you're getting a date, dynamic location with coordinates, a name that you can name it. So like this is exploration. This is it. All we need from here is to confirm that we can actually share these points. But as soon as you can mark a location on a map, explorers can now hand locations over to miners, salvagers, hell, even people who want to run cool events in pretty spots. You can start to sell these location markers. That's it. Just like that. So this map's kind of a big deal. And I can't confirm all of this stuff will be included in this first launch. I'm guessing that's what they're going to show us on ISC. But here is that also the route marker they were talking about, where it makes your route for you.
The moment is we want to ensure that there are no more hostiles in our way as we make our way to our objective. So what we can do is we can send out a ping. Bone, if you send out a ping, please. So the scanning will also be represented in the map in the same fashion as it is when you're in FPS. So we know that there's no more hostiles. Let's go ahead and make our way to our objective.
I'm assuming, Scott, these points will be stored in this app here called Logs. I'm guessing this is where custom notes, waypoints, things that you need to keep for yourself will be. Maybe also Galactopedia, or maybe there's another. I mean, you have a marker databank up here, so I guess you could see all your markers through this, but, you know, in some way. So yeah, this is kind of the map. This is where it's headed. And here's the part that I was talking about mainly, for those who don't know, the idea of downloading maps and not necessarily having them by default.
The objective is to go to the map kiosk and download a terminal. Let's go ahead and activate it. What you see on screen, zoom out a bit, what you see on screen is a fully live 3D representation of the environment that we are in. You can see callouts of the various default points of interest. You can pan the map around, you can rotate it, and you can even cycle the floors that you're on to isolate the visuals of the floor that you're on. So our current objective, it's much more interesting if we can actually take this on the go. So let's download it to our databank.
See, that's a super key part of this demo that I think we'll come back to a lot, but that still tells me that you won't just have a map everywhere you go. And I do really hope they stick to that. Anyways, let's get back to the actual thing that we came here for.
Showcased by Sean Tracy and Andre at CitizenCon, the character customizer.
Yeah, the character customizer is super cool. So along with all the new scans of characters and all the new basically look people that you're going to be able to customize from. Yeah, you've got basically two ways of customizing a character now, which is very exciting. You've essentially got something that allows you to do a DNA blend, which is that's what we call it anyway. So you're basically taking your head on one side, which is what you currently have. There's basically a bank of heads on the other side that you can flick through and look, I like these particular features. And what you can do is you can select one, go, I like this person's nose. I can then go on my slider 0 to 100% and go, I want to go all the way to having their nose, and I want to go all the way to having mine, or I want to go somewhere in between. So it blends the two shapes together. And you can do that for the entire head. You can do it for ears, nose, eyes, brow, lips, all that sort of stuff. The second way of doing it, which is a very cool one, is, I don't know what we ended up calling it, but essentially you are grabbing anchor points on the face. So let's say I grabbed my brow and I was looking at it from the side and I dragged my mouse to the right-hand side and try to pull it out, what it does is it looks through our bank of heads that we've got in the back end and essentially tries to translate what is there to what you're doing with the mouse. So if I did it on my nose and pulled it that way, it would try and find a nose with a shape that's like that. So you're basically grabbing points on the face, moving the mouse around, and essentially seeing it go through all of these different iterations so it feels like you're sculpting, but you're not, if that makes sense. So you come out the other side being able to make some really, really unique characters, and we've had a lot of fun in tests trying to make, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dave Bautista.
You always try.
It's a fun testing session. You can get something that looks, pretty damn close. But on top of that, we've got new hair, facial hair, makeup. The hair is very, very cool, by the way. You've now got hair dye. So if I really wanted to, let's say, change my hair to white, I can change it to white, have it fade into blue. I can select how quickly it fades in, if it's like a sharp transition, if it's near the root or near the tip. There's a ton of really cool customization there. And obviously the UI has had a big overhaul as part of that too.
Not an Alien says, I hope we can make freaks.
Depends, yeah.
Just leave it.
Yeah, okay.
Just let him sit with that. Let everybody sit knowing that that's what he said.
You can make
not an alien.
Unique characters.
Cargo. Cargo's getting its next big kind of push there.
Cargo.
What can you tell us that's involved there? Freight elevators, obviously.
Yeah, we've got the freight elevators. We've got the basically the instance hangars. So you're going to be able to go to your own hangar. You're going to have your freight elevator. You're going to be able to spawn your ship. The core part of the experience is that you essentially go to your freight elevator. We'll have a kiosk with a nice new UI on it. You can then interact with that to essentially go, what's in my storage? So the regular inventory area storage is going away. So it's much more physically based in your hangar storage. It's very much more personal. You then go, I want all of this stuff, click, 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 click. You fill up or see the freight elevator filling up on the UI. You then click a button and lo and behold, all your stuff's just come out the ground. And then it's up to you to load it into your ship. So as part of that, we'll also have things like hover trolleys. We've obviously got the tractor beam that's usable in there too. So you can then wheel it over, start loading up your ship. And it's a much more representative feel of what the cargo experience is going to be like long term.
It's a lot in 323.
That's kind of nuts that they're at least confirming they're expecting cargo and freight elevators in 323. I wish they would say something about like the missions and stuff too, though.
We're not done. There's a. I want to start wrapping this because I want to get to our next talking point here. We're not sharing everything that's in 323. There are still some things we want to keep secret. There's still some, obviously, I also don't want to spoil an entire season of ISC. We've already covered so much stuff like this. But you can also expect things like the Blockade Runner mission. If you remember, we covered that on ISC sometime last year, maybe in Q3.
We covered that on a deep dive a couple weeks ago. In the missions video, like if you want to know all the missions they've talked about. I don't have the Xenothreat one, obviously, that they talk about in a couple minutes here, but there are several missions that they talked about last year that have kind of slipped back that I think are probably coming soon in the next few patches.
The Blockade Runner experience that we talked about then, that's targeted for 323. A big update to Xenothreat that we're not going to share just yet. We're going to let players, that's one of those things that we're going to let players experience for yourself. Xenothreat and a sort of a pre-Xenothreat thing that's got a name, but I'm not going to share the name today. I want to see if people can suss it out. But Xenothreat's getting much
pre-Xenothreat name. This is probably a very poor attempt to finding the name, but just since we're here, let's try this. So in this build folder, he has names of events. I don't think this is going to lead to anything, but maybe we'll see something.
We'll do this by
I don't even remember where they are. I think all of these events either have been used or are outdated.
The input parameters that can be looking through the library of available and it has access to much of the same information.
Let's see. We've got Fleet Week, no. Freighter Escort. I think that's a mission. I think that might be the mission that we were seeing, or related to the mission we were seeing last year in the monthly reports, where they talk about like an escort mission and you have to do things while you're on the escort. Jumptown 2, we knew about that. Ninetales Lockdown, that's what's being changed out to Blockade Runner. Security Lockdown, I don't know what that is. Maybe that, I don't know. And then Xenothreat. So the only ones here that aren't a thing is Drug Run, Gold Rush, Infiltrator, Quasar Demo. I don't know. I don't think any of these would be a thing. This is like 3 years ago. This is 2021. Like a preparation kind of phase. We wouldn't prepare for Xenothreat though. That'd be weird. We don't know they're coming. It's a surprise terrorist attack. What would a pre-Xenothreat event look like?
That's one of those things that we're going to let players experience for yourself. Xenothreat and a sort of a pre-Xenothreat thing that's got a name, but I'm not going to share the name today. I want to see if people can suss it out. But Xenothreat's getting much, much bigger, much broader, and much more interesting, personally, from my perspective. That'll start to roll out before 323 and then into 323 if all things go as planned.
Hopefully.
The looting stuff, the looting stuff.
Oh, the looting's fantastic.
The new looting stuff that we saw at CitizenCon is going in. There's a new shopping app. We haven't showed that because the guys on Team Kian's team actually are working on it right now. We'll be showing that in ISC hopefully in about 5-6 weeks.
Thought he just said Keenan for a second. That was very close to.
Kian's team actually are working. We haven't showed that because the guys on Team Kian's team actually are working on it right now. We'll be showing that in ISC hopefully in about 5-6 weeks. When we go back to Team Kian for even more stuff that they're working on, they got a whole lot of stuff in 323 on that team. And then some economy stuff.
Ooh.
I've been doing this a long time. And we haven't talked a whole lot about economy stuff, and it's rolling MMOs and stuff like that. So for the economy stuff, we're actually going to take a quick break, and we're going to bring in 2 members of our economy team who have never been on video before. We've never actually put a showcase on the people who are down in the trenches doing the economy stuff. So we're going to do that in a minute. So we're going to throw it to a beautiful scene of Pyro 2. 4, I don't remember which one, while we shuffle some chairs around. And we'll be back to talk even more stuff coming in Alpha 323. So stay tuned.
All right, y'all. So let's talk about economy. Again, that was the 323 deep dive, but these economy changes might also be coming up in the patch, which would actually be a really major change too. Economy is one of the things that tends to not change too much throughout the years. And now that they have a team who's been working on it for, I think, about 7 or 8 months now, they've been building up some work that they're getting ready to put in that I think will end up changing how we go about missions and general gameplay.
Hi, everybody. We're talking about all the cool, awesome stuff. I was going to say a swear word, and I already used my one yesterday. Being targeted for Alpha 323. Joining us now are members of our UK economy team, Andre and Nick. Nick, how you doing?
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having us.
So this is your first time on any kind of video stuff. Economy is not a topic we often talk about on our video stuff. It's not a particularly visual topic. So, but there's some big changes coming in 323, and then we'll continue on to 4.0 and stuff. So we wanted to start this conversation that will continue in the weeks leading in. Before we get into that, let's introduce yourselves. Let people know who you are and what you do. So Andre, you're closest, so we'll start with you. Hey. Who are you? What do you do?
I am Andre. I'm the lead economy designer.
The lead economy designer. What does the lead economy designer do?
Not much. But
well, he's figured the show out.
But I disagree with the fact that economy is not cool. I brought all my spreadsheets, so I'm going to prove you wrong.
You just live your life in spreadsheets.
Of course.
Yes. Okay. Nick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nick, and I am one of the economy designers.
You looked at your notes for that, didn't you? I saw you. All you had to do was say your name and what you did.
Just to be sure. Just got to be certain. Okay. I've got based in Manchester studio here, but I figured that was unnecessary. So.
And of course, the economy team is not just you. You're just the 2 who were drafted to appear with us today. Who else is on your team?
There's actually 3 of us. We have Connor in the US. Hello, Connor. He's probably most certainly watching us right now live.
Yeah.
You say one thing to Connor before we continue. What would it be?
What would it be?
You should check your notes.
Oh yeah, we should check my notes. It would be well done on other systems.
Oh, ominous.
Other systems. I think I spoke with Connor at CitizenCon. At one of the bars after the like later on in the night. And it was a good talk, and like the stuff he told me about the economy, it sounded good. It sounded like they were going to be doing some good stuff with it. And I think I remember somebody saying that like things weren't going to move with the economy sometime shortly after CitizenCon. These people aren't just like, they're not just talking out of their ass. They're doing work on this stuff, and a lot of times little tiny details come out of these bar citizens and stuff. They might not always be true, but take it with a grain of salt and trust that like just because there's not an official big release of information about something doesn't mean it's not being worked on. I'm glad that they're starting to finally show their faces and talk about this stuff going on.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about economy, because I mean, everybody knows what the textbook definition, well, I shouldn't say everybody. Most people know what the textbook definition of the word is. As it applies to video games, I think it's easy to just assume it's the prices of things and that's it. But we know that it's more than that. So what is economy as it applies to a large-scale open universe MMO like Star Citizen?
I completely agree with your statement. First of all, of course, it includes the prices, but at least for myself, it's a bit more than that. It includes telling a story, but instead of using nice pictures, instead of using words, we are telling a story with numbers. We want to make sure that everybody is immersed in the world. They are having fun. They progress. Everything that they are doing not only makes a difference for the world and for the other players, also makes a difference for themselves.
Would you agree with that, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely. I mean, especially with an MMO, it's all about an immersive dynamic. It's the feel that everything around you is connected and that your actions have purpose and you can progress and so can your friends.
It's interesting to me that you use the word immersive, because it is one of the. You know, I'm going on 10 years.
It's our favorite word.
Years here. So one of the things that I've heard CR complain about periodically is the fact that you can buy a missile for like 500 AUEC. That's not the actual number, but it's some ridiculously low number. It's like you could never just go into a store and buy a missile for $500 or whatever. It's like we got to get this economy stuff done. Is that what we're talking about here with 3.23 and 4.0 on? Are we starting the process of now going through and retuning all of these?
For sure, we are in the process of retuning that. We are not only giving our players and to ourselves, because all of us are fans of the game, but the chance to earn more money, to become rich and be rewarded in a fair way for the activity they do, but also the chance to spend that UEC on something that they can be proud of.
Mm-hmm. And so before we get into the specifics of what's going to happen in 3.23, when we talk about the things that are economy, obviously the prices of a thing are the economy, but the travel times, how long it takes you to take something from this to this is a factor of the economy, because that now determines whether the payout is, whether a 10,000 credit payout is actually worth the 10,000 or not. How long it takes you to get your ship back from insurance is a factor of economy. What else am I not thinking of?
Those are very good examples. And going back to immersion, it's almost like level design. We want to find in the places that we go and explore the things that we would expect to find there, and their prices to be according to, for example, to the distance from where they are produced.
Love this stuff. I love to hear this. We're going to go all the way back to the OG Star Citizen videos to talk about this one. All right, so if you go back to these really old videos, they actually have something here about the economy. And all that stuff about, how far away is the job you're going for, we talk about that a lot. Like, they'll give you a mission that has you flying 40 million kilometers across the system, drop off a satellite for 5,000 credits. Most people would say that's a waste, right? But if that same mission required you to do that for 30,000 credits, you might consider it, yeah, I'd do that. They don't necessarily have to throw an enemy in there or throw extra steps in there to make it seem like it's worth more money. It can be distance, it can be the risk of the environment, it can be whether it's a cave versus a space station. There's a lot of ways for them to differentiate missions and stuff, and then also give us payouts based on that stuff. So I'm glad they're starting to talk more in depth about that as an idea, as opposed to just across the board payments for all these different missions. Here's what they originally said about the economy, though. A little throwback.
The economy itself, first of all, in Star Citizen is completely dynamic. So the player's actions are going to be affecting the supply and demand and the prices. So a lot of the missions that are generated for players to take, or even AI to go and do, are created by the economy system itself. To give you an example, if you have a weapons factory sitting on a planet and it requires 3 tons of metal alloy and 1 ton of high explosive and 1 ton of electronics to create 20 missiles in a game turn, that factory will create a mission out on the mission boards, which we'll have like in a system, and that will propagate to other systems at sort of the speed of communication in the Star Citizen universe. And it will say, hey, look, I need 3 tons of steel alloy, 1 ton of high explosive, 1 ton of electronics, and who wants to take them? And so in that case, a player could look at the mission board and go, oh, look, there's a mission to take 3 tons. Okay, I'll take it, and fly in with the alloy. And if the player doesn't do it, an AI will take it and fly the stuff in. And along the way, if that player or the AI get attacked by a pirate and they don't make it through, then the goods aren't getting to the factory. The factory doesn't have the materials it needs to make the missiles, so it can't produce missiles that turn. Now, if people are buying missiles in that system, the inventory on the show floor will dwindle and they won't have any more missiles, which will mean the supply's low, so the demand's high. Prices will probably go up. Now, that factory will probably say, I have a pirate problem on my getting my raw materials, so it will create a mission with the Mercenaries Guild and says, I need you to go and clear out the pirates that are attacking this stuff, or I need you to be an escort ship escorting this alloys in. So that creates missions for mercenaries there. So players' actions as a pirate or as a trader could affect what's happening in the economy. The pirates could be strangling supply to planets, or other people could be blockading it, and then if supplies aren't getting through, that planet will be creating missions to get supplies or get people to open the blockade. So basically the economy itself is generating a lot of the action, and the missions are going on. And by the way, in that combat that you're having, like the pirate that is attacking the merchant ship, well, missiles are getting fired, ships are getting blown up. Well, that's demand on the economy side. So, that means that more missiles will have to be replenished, or a ship has to be replenished. So there's factory nodes on planets making the ships.
Chris.
And so it all is kind of balanced. Hopefully from that you can sort of see how the economy and the fact that it's dynamic is generating missions for other players, or generating missions for AI, is creating supply and demand and consumption and production.
So this, oh my God, that's loud. This idea is kind of what led into the quantum simulation that they've talked about. And you can find other videos. In fact, the one that we were looking at just a little bit ago with the dynamic events was one of those videos where they talk about this simulation and how it's supposed to run the economy. And it's in depth, and I don't know just how much of that idea he was just talking about that they're going to stick with in terms of how it spawns missions or handles supply and demand, because you also have to think those missions will go up in payout because they're more dangerous. So there are a lot of variables that could lead into this, but hopefully they might get into that a little bit here today.
The players to have access to the resources that they need and they want.
And Fuller 0079 says, he says UEC, not AUEC. Don't read into it, man. I promise. Just, like we're sitting here, we're giving you all this actual information, and then people are like digging for like hidden information between the words. It just makes it's just going to make you unhappy. It doesn't mean nothing. Enjoy the show. All right, so in 323, the first, let's say the next kind of major push towards building this economy, towards hardening this economy that's been, if you don't mind my saying, kind of all over the place for years and years and years. It's going to happen. What are we talking about as far as what's going to happen in 323?
Well, cohesive is a word that we are using a lot, bringing all these systems that our wonderful colleagues already built, bringing them together so they make sense when they work together. You've already seen some glimpses in Pyro, in the design of Pyro, in the design of the prices of the new, the new prices of armors that need to work very hard on them. We're working on the weapons, on FPS weapons, pre-balance, vehicles, ships. Eventually, we're going to do a pass on everything, basically.
So armors, weapons, probably the one that most people will notice right off the bat is ships and vehicles. So there's going to be a substantial change to the prices of ships and vehicles in 323. We're not going to ask you for specific numbers here because 323 is still many, many weeks away, and it would be a pointless exercise right now. But talk to me about the process. How are you determining what these new prices are going to be?
Thank you.
There's not a good way or a bad way to do it. We explore different ways. Talking specifically about vehicles, for example, manufacturers, it's something that we look into. We could take each individual vehicle or ship and disassemble it into its stats. How fast does it accelerate? How fast? What is its maximum speed and mass and everything? But because that is subject to change, we don't want to tweak those prices every time a small change is made.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we take those factors that we know they are already decided on. For example, I mentioned already manufacturers. Some manufacturers put more care into their work. They use better.
See, this is a super important point, dangerous point, because now this is starting to tread into marketing territory. The way that marketing phrases these ships, they got to make sure that like it goes correctly with the way that the ships are priced. If we talk about how Drake has very weak armor because that's just what they are and the price reflects that, then marketing can't go and put out a video that shows a cutlass tanking through a bunch of fire. Like, we all know they will though.
Some manufacturers put more care into their work. They use better materials. They use better technology. They use alien technology that is harder to get. That informs the price. Obviously, if a ship is larger, it's going to cost more.
Gotcha. And if it's Drake, it's obviously going to be cheaper.
I would not confirm or deny that.
Yeah. So manufacturer is one tenet. What else is a factor?
The size of the ship and its focus. So the same way a tank is more expensive than a lorry, the same way we'd expect a combat ship to have better technology, better armor, better stats on average than a truck.
Okay. So it sounds like, if I'm understanding you correctly, in 323 there's going to be
So manufacturer, components, armor materials, and power, maybe, like redundancy.
Massive change to the in-game cost. And I want to make sure that we're talking. This is a development thing. It's not a marketing thing before the friggin' Reddit threads start up. This is going through and working the in-game economy and realigning the ships based on manufacturer, roll size. I did ask you if you could give us some examples. Now, these are not going to be final examples. Obviously, again, the changes won't happen for several weeks yet. But just to help us illustrate, to help us prepare for what kind of stuff we're talking about. Were you able to get some examples?
Yes.
For us? Okay.
I watch your show, so I see that you have a Pisces there.
No, yeah.
So the rescue one, because we want to make it more affordable, and because myself, I see myself playing as a medic in the future. I made it a bit more affordable. So it's going to be in the range of $500,000 USC, alpha USC. And
so
I feel like a spaceship medic is like an advanced form of medical gameplay. It seems like a basic medic shouldn't afford a ship, right? Like, you should be starting out as a medic who's working on a team or in a crew, or maybe on a non-dedicated medical starter ship. But it seems like making the ship affordable for the person to get into medical gameplay. I don't know. I guess it all depends on really when that becomes affordable. Because that's the constant conversation. How long should it take to earn one of those ships? They might be lowering the prices, but they also might be raising the mission payouts. So this will be an ongoing thing. They are talking about this being an economy push, an update to the economy in 3.23, and as he seems to be saying, beyond throughout this year. Do not in any way expect this to be final, though. This is probably like the economy update for alpha. Like, this is the alpha economy, and from here on will be good until probably after 4.0 for a bit, and then like once they get the extra systems in, like quantum simulation running, supply and demand is going, economic nodes are going, Maelstrom is in, armor is in, then they'd probably do a couple more big updates like this. But I think things will change after this even.
Saying something like the prices might actually go down as far as the cost.
The Pisces Rescue is going to be a lot more affordable than it was. I can give the example of my favorite ship. You can argue about that in the chat. It's the Arrow. I really like the Arrow. It's going to be in the range of about 2 million per USC. It's a combat ship. It's high performance ship. So obviously, somebody that can drive that ship worked very hard to get that ship, and they can be proud of owning that ship.
So those seem like kind of lower level, entry level ships.
Yes.
Can we talk about something kind of mid range, like a Connie? Or
a Connie, it's a very good example because a lot of our players like that ship. I think it's in the range of 10 million now. Maybe going back into combat, something even larger. I really like the Hammerhead. Yeah, the Hammerhead is going to be about 45 to 50 million USC. It's a ship that.
Okay, so they're going to do combat bias then, because the Hammerhead's not 4 times bigger than the Connie, and it sounds like he was saying specifically going towards something combat focused. So that's cool. 45 million's a lot, but honestly, for a ship like that, what are you buying it for? Or gameplay? Group gameplay? A military, a militia? But again, if you're going to charge that much for a Hammerhead, you have to supply the missions for people who would be interested in the Hammerhead to earn that money. You can't just be like, oh yeah, the Hammerhead's 45 million. It's a lot of money, but you can make plenty of money salvaging. You got to make it so that the people who are interested in using the Hammerhead can easily earn into that. Otherwise, everybody's going to have to be in some kind of multi-purpose organ. Who really wants that? Not me. Multi-purpose organ. Ew. The garden does not grow.
It's a ship that it's a multi-crew ship, so I can see players pulling their resources together to buy such a ship.
Gotcha. And this is, you're using the words "it's going to be" and stuff like this. This is what we're working towards. This is what we're currently working towards. Of course, with feedback and testing and stuff, the numbers may change and whatnot. Of course, 3.23 is not the end all be all for anything. It's like obviously these things go in. We get player feedback. We do the testing at full scale, and then
only the first,
and then adjust and continue.
It's only the first pass.
I got to remember that Jared's already here to do his job, and I don't need to say that stuff.
The economy team is doing.
But this is a conversation that's been waiting to happen for years and years. Like we've always. I don't think it's been a secret to anybody who's played Star Citizen that like I said, the economy has always just been kind of this. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We're here. We're getting to it now, for lack of a better term. So Alpha 3.23 is that next push, but it's not the last push. It'll continue to be balanced, continue to be evolved. I'm going to ask you for like okay. So we did a Pisces and an Arrow. We did a constellation. Let's go to the far end and just see if we can get some of that sticker shock out of the way. What are you thinking for something like an 890?
For example.
For example.
You like the nicer things in life.
Oh well, I'm just trying to work the sticker shock here. So Origin, fancy manufacturer, 890, super big on the size. What are you thinking? And I'm just going to hold my,
So
hold my
let's
alpaca here.
Daisy.
let's
Daisy.
make a list. Do you want gold on the walls? Do you like the marbles in the bathrooms? What do you need?
Give me the worst case scenario. What
Yeah,
are
I
we
want to
thinking
know
worst
what an
case scenario?
Idris is going to cost.
No, we are talking about luxury. We are
140.
talking about origin, a manufacturer that it's
143.
famous for putting so much care and so much quality in their ships, and I'm thinking in the range of 70 million USD.
Oh, I wouldn't double that. Okay. I was close.
Somebody that has an
David, I need a
jump,
loan.
they can be proud of it.
Again, now we need missions that can pay for that. Right? And touring, don't get me wrong, I have definitely experienced enough touring in this game to know that it can pay, but they need to make the missions for it. Sandbox gameplay is one thing, but you also need gameplay to introduce people to that sandbox and show them how it's supposed to happen.
All right.
Are we going to be able to sell virtual kidneys? Is that a thing?
Look at him. He's the FPS guy.
Not yet.
Is that coming in 323?
No.
Oh.
We can balance the price on that.
But I've known JJ a long time. He's not going to dismiss the idea out of hand. Oh, maybe harvesting some organs.
Maybe we've got a
sideline and 9
got a
tails.
multi-tool.
That's what the multi-tool is for. All right, so obviously, these are the prices that we're currently thinking. This work is ongoing and will continue until Alpha 3.23 releases. Once it releases as part of Alpha 3.23, it will continue to be evaluated.
Yep.
It'll continue to solicit feedback, continue to look at analytics, all that good stuff, and make adjustments as necessary. Because that's what you do with a live service game. You make adjustments as necessary. Thank you so much for this. This was again, like I remember, coming to you, like, hey, we want to talk about economy. You were very eager. You were very you since the first time I ever met you. You're like, I want to get on there and start chatting with people about economy. So I'm glad we got a chance.
I want that feedback as soon as possible. That's the reason.
That's what we like to hear, Andre.
It looks like they're pretty done. I think this is a short economy talk. There's a lot of stuff that we could really use information-wise on economy. Like at the very minimum, just telling us what is an economic node in the game right now and what does it do for the game right now. The more we know about how the economy runs, the more we can test it. But it also may be the case that they're trying not to let us know too much so that we can't learn it. We can't get into the deep end of it and figure it out from the inside out too much over time.
Guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything, JJ, anything more we want to say about 3.23? Let's go back through the list real quick before we're talking. So right now, targeted for Alpha 3.23.
Hold up. I need to have my list up here just to make sure I'm up to date. Pretty sure we're good.
We're targeting new EVA, the new Pie-Piss Pit, whatever we gotta get better at naming.
Piss Pie.
There's 2 pies, Jared. We're only dealing with 1.
New default item actions.
Hold up. Wait, start over. I'm sorry.
23. We're targeting new EVA, the new Pie-Piss Pit, whatever we gotta get better at naming.
It's even better. There's 2 pies, Jared. We're only dealing with 1.
New default item actions, reloading, dynamic crosshair, scopes, distribution centers, master modes.
I did not have scopes. They didn't even, I don't think they mentioned that. It's on here. Where is that? I think I have that slated for half 1. Scopes? Nice.
1.
New default item actions, reloading, dynamic crosshair, scopes, distribution centers, master modes, precision targeting.
And master modes, they keep saying, is that more ships master modes in AC, or is this master modes to the live game? Like, what is it? What do they mean by that?
New default item actions, reloading, dynamic crosshair, scopes, distribution centers, master modes, precision targeting, turret and gimbal changes, visor and lens stuff, new looting screens, a new looting system rather, a new shopping app, the Starmap, character customizer, a whole bunch of things cargo, including the freight elevators and some more. The blockade runner.
Okay, and he also just said a whole bunch of things including cargo. just including the freight elevators. So that might mean that they're trying to get that cargo update with the factions and reputation in on this patch as well. Also would make sense with the missions that they were working on last year that kind of just disappeared.
Mission stuff we talked about, big changes to Xenothreat and these economy changes, and that's just the stuff I'm willing to share with you right now. There's even more.